Hello and welcome to Crime Watch Daily Updates. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. Phylicia Barnes was a bright 16-year-old student from North Carolina who spent some of her high school winter break in 2010 visiting her half-sister, Deena, in Baltimore. But what should have been a fun bonding experience for sisters ended in tragedy and in heartbreak. On December 28th of 2010, Phylicia stayed back at her sister's house while Deena went to work. The two had plans to meet up later that day, but as the time rolled around, Phylicia wasn't answering her phone. She wasn't at Deena's house either, so Deena called the Baltimore Police to report Phylicia missing. Other than hanging out with Deena, Phylicia also allegedly spent some time with Deena's ex, Michael Johnson. He was supposedly the last person to see her before she disappeared, and the same day, neighbors reportedly saw him moving a large plastic tub out of Deena's apartment. Prior to her death, Phylicia and Michael reportedly exchanged over 1,300 text messages. In April of 2011, Phylicia's body was found floating in the Susquehanna River about 40 miles away from where she was last seen. The autopsy determined that she died from asphyxia, though there was also the possibility that she suffered from hypothermia in the water. Michael was arrested in April of 2012 in connection with Phylicia's death. At his trial, a witness said that Michael confessed to killing Phylicia when they had had sex, and Michael needed the witness's help in moving the body. He was convicted of second-degree murder, but a judge threw out the verdict because the prosecution reportedly withheld information from the defense. Michael went to trial again, and this time prosecutors showed a risque and sexual tape involving Michael, Phylicia, Deena, and Michael's brother. Phylicia's family didn't get the ending that they wanted the second time around because the case ended in a mistrial. Michael was charged for a third time, and after a lengthy appeals process, he went to trial again in 2018. After a 4-week trial, a jury acquitted him of murder charges. Let's look back at the mysterious death of a promising teen who disappeared while visiting her sister.
She's a small-town girl visiting her big city half-sister over the Christmas holidays. But before the high school honor student can ring in the new year, Phylicia Barnes vanishes without a word to anyone.
I was praying that maybe someone had just maybe kidnapped her and would let her go.
When suddenly a mysterious sex tape surfaces.
They were intoxicated. They were partially nude. It's not the kind of video you would necessarily want played if she was your child.
And a sickening secret is unveiled.
Hello? It's Michelle Sagona from Crime Watch Daily.
What happened to pretty Phylicia Barnes? Now the last known person to see Phylicia alive is put on trial for a third time.
He's going to be found guilty.
Will he receive a guilty verdict, or will Michael Johnson walk out of court a free man? Phylicia Barnes, the naive 16-year-old, idolized her older half-sister, Deena.
I know there was an age difference, but she was like my best friend.
They had a wonderful bond.
And Deena was a good influence on Phylicia.
Yes.
You just watched them blossom
Yes.
together.
Yes.
It was 3 days after Christmas. Phylicia had decided to sleep in rather than go with her sister to her job. They would meet up later at home, but those best-laid plans would take a mysterious turn.
Was it like her to go somewhere without telling you?
No. And I called her phone numerous times, repeatedly, like hang up, call back, hang up, call back. I was panicking at the point where I couldn't find her. Like, I'd called everybody I could think of, and no one had heard from her, and I couldn't reach her. That's immediate panic. It's not like Phylicia.
Hours trickle by. Phylicia's obsessive postings on social media have mysteriously come to a dead stop.
At what point do you say, this is serious enough, I need to call police?
Yeah, that didn't take long at all for me to call the police. It was like within an hour of me getting home.
There's not a whisper of her whereabouts.
There's no track of Phylicia Barnes. No sightings.
Investigative reporter Joy LaPola from our Baltimore affiliate Fox 45 says with each new clue, it became clear Phylicia didn't leave willingly.
She didn't take any of her money. It seemed like she didn't really take what she needed to be able to go out anywhere in the cold.
And I believe she was in her slippers.
The search was looking grim.
It seems like everybody was helping, except one person.
Yeah,
Who was that?
my ex.
Now, Phylicia had a passing schoolgirl crush on Deena's ex, 28-year-old Michael Johnson, and he often volunteered as her chaperone.
So I'm sure there was some appeal. Whether she wanted to be involved in a relationship beyond friendship, that's hard to say.
But on the night Phylicia mysteriously disappears, Michael Johnson reportedly calls in sick to work and vanishes for a while, too.
What was he not doing?
I called and asked him to come around. It took him, I couldn't find him.
When Deena finally did reach Johnson, she told him Phylicia was missing, and she was terrified.
He was like, well, do you want me to come around there? Do you want me to come over? Okay, keep me updated, keep me informed.
Strange behavior from a man who playfully called Phylicia Little Sis.
Are you thinking that was odd?
It was his brother or sister. I would have been out there in my car driving around looking. I would have come right away, and I would have been looking.
At some point, Michael does come over.
I remember him saying, this isn't good. I was the last person that saw her.
He said that.
Yeah, I remember him saying that.
Not only that, Deena's ex had been moving his things out of her apartment on the same day Phylicia mysteriously went missing. And Johnson was seen dragging a 35-gallon plastic tub out of Deena's place and up the stairs into his new apartment.
A neighbor came out across the way in the building and saw him struggling trying to push this plastic tote up the steps. And the neighbor asked him if he needed any help, and he said, no, I got it. But he was struggling.
The disappearance of 16-year-old Phylicia Barnes has set off a firestorm of media. The beautiful honor student went missing just 3 days after Christmas.
I wouldn't think she would just run off or anything like that, because that was not in her character.
But after an exhaustive 4-month search, a father's worst nightmare, his beloved daughter's body is found, naked, floating near a dam in the Susquehanna River, 45 miles from home.
Which way is the best way?
Let's go this way.
Phylicia's dad takes me back to the spot where they found his Phylicia. He carries purple balloons and a bouquet of flowers to place at the water's edge. He's never been here before today.
This is some rugged terrain.
Yes, it is.
It's a courageous journey for a broken-hearted father.
It's a terrible place for anyone to be.
I mean, it's horrific. I mean, her body was nude in this rubbish.
Russell Barnes is now on a mission to make the person who killed his daughter pay. And Russell claims he knows right where to look. Michael Johnson, his older daughter Deena's ex-boyfriend. He was the guy seen struggling to move a 35-gallon tub shortly after Phylicia disappeared. A neighbor claims he offered to help, but Johnson told him to stay away.
But he was struggling. And the theory goes that Phylicia's body was in that box.
Johnson used to refer to Phylicia as his little sis, but turns out the 28-year-old was more than an unofficial friendly chaperone to the vulnerable teenager. Phone records show they had exchanged more than 1,300 texts over the last few months of her life.
I'm sure there was some appeal, whether she wanted to be involved in a relationship beyond friendship. That's hard to say.
And police say Johnson was the last known person to see the 16-year-old alive.
You know, he never disclosed his whereabouts. He was a person of interest from the beginning.
Then, a paper trail surfaces of Johnson buying that 35-gallon plastic tub. With that and other key pieces of evidence, cops move in and charge Michael Johnson with murder. From the beginning, the state's case against Michael Johnson would be a roller coaster of legal twists and turns that would lead to the state's highest court of appeals. At first, murder trial prosecutors introduce a surprise star witness, James McCrae. McCrae testifies Michael Johnson called him to his apartment and asked him to help get rid of Phylicia's body. Then, in riveting testimony, he tells the jury Johnson told McCrae he strangled the 16-year-old.
Michael Johnson confessed to him, said that the two were involved sexually Phylicia wouldn't stop crying, and Michael Johnson put a pillow over her face and suffocated her. And he didn't know what to do with the body, and he called James for help in getting rid of the body.
But Johnson never wavers from maintaining his innocence. His attorneys point to cracks in the prosecutor's case, including there's no DNA against him. The jury, though, doesn't buy Johnson's defense. It finds him guilty of second-degree murder. Investigative reporter Joy LaPola from our Baltimore affiliate Fox 45 says the judge stunned the courtroom.
We came back for sentencing, and the verdict was thrown out because of James' testimony, because the state didn't turn over all the information they were supposed to the defense, and it cost him the case.
It had to be devastating.
It was devastating.
The trial was pretty much a real circus.
During Johnson's retrial, prosecutors wanted to prove there was a dangerous turning point in the relationship between the defendant and the teenager just before she died.
The video, I think that was a bombshell.
That video is described as a sex tape. On it, Michael Johnson, his brother, Phylicia, and a fourth person. That person, believe it or not, Phylicia's older sister, Deena.
It was shocking.
I mean, this is a young girl. This is a 16-year-old girl on a sex tape with a grown man and his grown brother and her grown sister.
They were intoxicated. They were partially nude. It's not the kind of video you would necessarily want played if she was your child.
All right, we're going to talk about something that I know that is very hard for you, but it is something that's out there, and you do have a side to all of this. Talk to me about the tape.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I feel like ultimately, no matter what the public may think or what people think, we need to just keep on that path for justice for her.
I did not see it coming.
Dad Russell Barnes accuses Johnson of being behind the deplorable sex video.
I believe that that video was coerced.
Set up by who?
This person.
By Michael.
Yes.
Kids make mistakes. I get it.
The video, you know, just really showed that how much this guy was really luring Phylicia, you know, and with the girls being young and green.
Despite the charges of a heartbroken father, the jury never gets to weigh in on the video or Johnson's innocence. During his second trial, the prosecution plays a recording the jury was not supposed to hear, and the judge declares a mistrial. But that's not the worst part of it all for Phylicia's family.
The judge even drops all charges against Michael Johnson. Is that right?
He did.
Feels great to be out. 31 months.
But prosecutors don't give up, eventually appealing the judge's decision to the state's highest court. And the charges of second-degree murder were reinstated against Johnson. Johnson appealed that decision to the U.S. Supreme Court, and he was denied.
Ultimately, what's been ruled?
He's going to stand trial again.
A third trial.
A third trial. But he's free now. He's out.
I don't have anything to say.
He's going to be found guilty, because he know he did it, and we know he did it.
Phylicia's family and the prosecutors felt the third trial would finally deliver an outcome they were desperately seeking.
It's a rough road, but we're going to get through it. So we're positive, still staying positive and optimistic, and looking good.
But in the end, nothing looked good for the grieving family. On the last day in court, the judge had one critical burning question for prosecutors. Where's the evidence? The judge stated in his ruling, quote, "The bottom line is that there are far, far too many questions left unanswered for any fact finder to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt." And with that, Michael Johnson, who authorities still believe murdered Phylicia Barnes, is now a free man, acquitted of killing the 16-year-old.
I mean, Mr. Johnson, so how does it feel? You are out. You're out, Mr. Johnson. How does it feel? How does it feel, Mr. Johnson?
After Johnson got into an awaiting car, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby expressed shock and disbelief at the judge's decision.
We fought this all the way to the highest court in the state and back. You know, I am extremely disappointed by today's decision, but I have to honor the judicial process.
But the Barnes family is left only to honor a higher power.
If he's not found guilty now, we still have to pay for it with the Lord. So, you know, we'll be okay.
An interesting note on this story, Johnson asked for his case to be heard by a judge, not tried by a jury. The move making sense since Johnson was convicted by a jury in his first trial and then acquitted by a judge the second time around. This third verdict of not guilty cannot be appealed.